They were shooting in the air, and people had to run in the church.
Coming up in the National Report, after a murderous rampage over the weekend, police arrest 5 more suspects in connection with the deadly shootings. We've got the latest.
Who will be the next head of the National Insurance Board? We ask Minister Shane Gibson coming up.
And wild weather hovers over the northwest and central Bahamas. Ahead tonight, Chief Meteorologist Basil Dean on where it's headed next. The National Report starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This segment of the news is brought to you by BTC, powered by Lime.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Keishla Adderley.
And I'm Kendino Knowles. As always, thanks for joining us.
Topping the news tonight, police arrested 5 additional suspects yesterday, accounting for 6 people they've now linked to yesterday's shooting and police chase between Kemp Road and Nassau Village.
Head of the Central Detective Unit, Superintendent Paul Roll, also tells ZNS News investigators believe they shot 3 suspects as they exchanged fire with police who chased them to Nassau Village. Now, a 40-year-old man and 17-year-old boy died in the rampage. 3 others were left hospitalized. Today, our Janelle Noel Ferguson returned to the scene of the crime, talking with residents about how this turn of events has affected them.
For Camp Road Ministries pastor Ivan Butler, the Camp Road area has been home to his church for about 30 years. And one day after mayhem broke out, resulting in the death of 2 men and the injury of several others, Butler is unsure if the negative stigma tied to Camp Road and its residents will ever be a thing of the past.
It's so sad when people have a stigma, and stigmas are very, very difficult to change. But I can tell you, as a pastor for 30 years in this community, I've not had a personal problem in this community.
Butler said he believes Monday's double homicide was a result of a turf war.
We are having in our communities inner communities rivaling each other, and that is a great challenge, and I think that created some of the problems that you would have seen yesterday.
Meanwhile, Camp Road resident Esther Mortimer says she's lived in the area all of her life and has never seen this level of unbridled violence.
Those who did the shooting yesterday and there, up that way and down that way, they ain't from Camp Road. That shocked me, because I was stand by my friend, and all we had is them going off up the road there. That shocked me.
And while police have asked for more support from the community in helping to solve crime, Mortimer claims that residents often harbor criminals or are reluctant to give information. She says there's one obvious reason for that.
You see, that's why you see a lot of witnesses them. They see things happen, but you wouldn't get them to go to court because they end up dying.
The police reportedly exchanged gunfire with bandits toting high-powered weapons on Monday. At a seminar on port security, Minister of Transport and Aviation Glenys Hannah Martin said they're also concerned about how these illegal firearms are entering the country.
We don't produce these things nationally, so they're coming in somewhere. And seaports, airports are the conduits, I assume, logically, where these things are coming through. And so we just spoke about this is a sort of a sharpening exercise to raise an awareness about security issues as it relates to seaports, which will, if we do our work properly, which will make official ports less penetrable. However, as you know, we're an archipelago, and so we have access entry points all over, and so it requires partnership with other agencies to seek to stave off the entry of these sort of things into our country.
Now, there were also allegations that those involved in Monday's murders were of Haitian or other nationalities. But Pastor Butler says he's seeing a paradigm shift in the country that he's gravely concerned about.
Bahamians are not who they used to be. And I think that the only way we can change that is we begin to give people a greater sense of hope.
Janae Noel Ferguson, ZNS Network News.
Watching a line of thunderstorms today and the threat of severe weather, they issued a warning to residents in Grand Bahama, Bimini, Andros, and New Providence.
And this afternoon, several reports came into our newsroom from residents in southern New Providence of waterspout activity. Here with the latest on conditions now is Chief Meteorologist Basil Dean. Basil, what are we in for tonight?
Well, thank you, Keisha. We are in for some unsettled weather, which started during the middle part of the afternoon, and that will continue off and on during the course of the night, right into tomorrow. As a matter of fact, right into about Thursday before we see any let-up in these conditions. And earlier there was the issuance of a severe weather warning at about 3:15, but that has been dropped at 5 o'clock. But during the course of the night, we may have to put those warnings back out, depending on whether or not these things intensify to that level. Right now, outside of our studios, we are seeing quite a bit of showers. This is the live weather radar. You can see pockets of showers over Andros, over the capital, the Berry Islands. Bimini is being soaked right now. Also, Grand Bahama, and is moving into the Abaco area. So these are the islands that are currently experiencing rain showers with some occasional thunderstorms. The very bright yellow spots, those are your thunderstorms. And wherever you have thunderstorm activity, there's always the possibility of water spouts to develop. And with the vast spans of water surrounding these islands, those water spouts are quite frequent during this time of the year. And outside of our studios right now, it is cloudy with thunderstorms. 75 degrees is your temperature. Relative humidity on the rich side at 98%. Winds out of the east at 3 knots. Barometric pressure 1,015.0 millibars. It's 29.97 inches, and the pressure is falling. But stay tuned. Temperatures around the Falmouth Islands, travel and boating forecast is still to come.
I'm not sure of who they're looking at or if they're looking at anybody, but there are a few names that I'm thinking about, at least 2 or 3.
Well, the search is on for the next National Insurance Board chief. Andrew Knowles fills us in on the process behind finding a new head of the country's Social Security program.
The search is on to find a replacement for ousted NIB Director Algernon Cargill. National Insurance Minister Shane Gibson told reporters outside Cabinet Tuesday that the process of identifying candidates began immediately after Cargill's termination last week.
I think the board should be advancing some names as well as I would advance a couple of names for the board's consideration, and hopefully over the next couple of weeks that could be concluded in terms of a recommendation from the board. I'm not sure of who they're looking at or if they're looking at anybody, but there are a few names that I'm thinking about, at least 2 or 3, and so hopefully the names that I'm looking at combined with the names that the board would want to look at, the board could then, I guess, interview them, and then we could make a decision.
And while the process has begun, National Insurance Board Chairman Reverend James Moultrie told our news team that no candidates have been considered yet for the position. However, it is believed that acting NIB Director Cecile Bethel will be among those in the running. Minister Gibson gave an indication of some of the qualities they'll be looking for in the new director.
We need somebody to bring the kind of leadership to NIB that it requires at the time, somebody who would have the respect of individuals, of the executives of NIB, somebody who would have the respect of the public at large and also the government of the Bahamas. And the profile of that individual, I think, is well known in terms of what kind of leadership skills are required at NIB at this time. And hopefully, once we identify somebody with those types of skills, then we would move on in making a selection.
The government spent more than $800,000 on the forensic audit report conducted by Grant Thornton. The reports were tabled in the House of Assembly last week, Wednesday. Minister Gibson said at the time that Cargill could also face criminal charges. But Mr. Cargill filed a judicial review last week asking the Supreme Court to set aside the findings of the investigation and also quash the decision to use Grant Thornton. Meantime, Minister Gibson describes the mood at NIB following the termination.
The employees, not the government, the employees last year, June, took a no-confidence vote, and I'm sure you would remember the results of that no-confidence vote. So you could tell me, based on that, how you think the morale is at this time. based on what I see, it's at an all-time high. Of course, you'd always have a few persons who, I guess, would have concerns, but that's normal in democracy.
No timeline has been given yet as to when the new director will be named. Andrew Knowles, ZNS Network News.
Legal arguments took place today ahead of the murder trial of Stephen Dye Stubbs, Clint Evans, and Andrew Davis. The trio is accused of killing police officer Jimmy Ambrose back in 1999. Stubbs' attorney, Muriel Ducille, and Jerome Roberts have filed a constitutional motion on his behalf, claiming that his constitutional rights have been breached due to the unreasonable delay in the case. According to Ducille, the matter has been dragging on for 13 years. He also noted that the adverse publicity surrounding the case may prevent the defendants from getting a fair trial. Director of Public Prosecutions Vanette Graham-Allen leads the prosecution team. Ian Cargill and Ramona Farquharson Seymour make up the defense. The Kofi Goodman murder trial didn't resume in the Supreme Court today as scheduled, as presiding judge Justice Bernard Turner remains ill. As a result, the case was put off until Wednesday morning. 38-year-old Goodman is accused of killing 11-year-old Marco Archer back in September of 2011. According to court evidence, the Columbus primary school student went to a nearby store and never returned home. Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions Garvin Gaskin, Attorney Neil Brathwaite, and Attorney Darrell Taylor are prosecuting the case. Attorney Jeffrey Farquharson is defending Goodman. Well, still ahead tonight, the drama that unfolded outside as patrons sat inside a movie theater. Charisma Robinson is on the case.
And strokes are as smooth as pure silk. Ahead, the final preparations for the two Bahamian participants of the LPGA tournament. You're watching The Bahamas Tonight.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Shell Helix Ultra. Performance you can see.